So this is my GBA Power Cleaner. Basically it filters 3 of the power rails on the Game Boy Advance. It is very good for when you do the IPS screen mods, where it causes sometimes noise, and then because of the power draw it's kind of dirty power, so it introduces noise in the speaker and in other places as well. So this will help clean it up. So the mod originally was discovered, or the filtering was discovered by an individual from the UK. I'll put his link down in the description. He has a guide. So basically he says to solder a 1 UF capacitor to the existing 0.1 UF, which is microfarads, and also if it's still dirty, you can add a 10 microfarad. So what I did was I added a 1 microfarad and a 10 for one power rail and another one for another power rail, which he mentions in his guide, but he addresses it by using a really large capacitor down further in the circuit. So we're tackling the 3 rails right at the CPU, the Game Boy Advance CPU. So I designed this to be a Flux PCB and also a very thin PCB. I wanted to see which one would work better. Personally, this obviously works better. It might be a little tweak. So I am going to release this on OSHPark, so anybody could download it, make it wherever you want, order it directly from OSHPark. You know, it's real simple. It's just 3 0805 sized 1 microfarad capacitors, and the other 3 are the 10 microfarad. So this is 1, this is 10, this is 1, this is 10, 1 and 10. Real simple. These are 0805 size, as I said, and this is like a quick solder board. So I'm going to show you how to solder each one. So depending on which one you get, you have an idea how to do it. So let me just push these off to the side. They do not come populated if you order from OSHPark. So just so you know ahead of time, I populated these myself. These are really cheap parts. You can get them from anywhere. You want to get, if you're going to get your own capacitors, you want to get at least 6.3 volts. Better 10 volts. If you can get the 10 volt version, that would be ideal. So the motherboard is here. If you notice, I'll zoom in a little bit. Clean that up. Okay. So this is one of the capacitors we're going to be soldering onto. This is the other one, and this one here is the other one. Basically the board fits just like that. And if you notice, the solder pads, the half moons or half circles here, they line up exactly on where each side of the existing capacitor is. So these are the 0.1 microfarads I was talking about. They don't really clean the voltage that well, so we're adding extra. And this is pretty low profile. It's out of the way. It's not going to interfere with anything if you do the screen mod or any kind of mod. Alright, so I'm going to show you guys how to do this one first. I'm just going to take this out of the way. The existing capacitors are really tiny. These are 04, 02 size. Very tiny. So the easiest way to do this would be to use Flux, get a fine tip iron. We're going to add a little bit of solder to each side of the existing capacitors, just so it flows easier and better. We're also going to add some solder to the contacts on each side here, just to get it on there. This way when we put the iron, it'll flow better from the Flex PCB to the solder we added on each end. Flux is really helpful, especially for beginners. It just makes things stick better. Okay, my tip. I use very fine solder. You can see it's super fine. It allows me to have control of flow. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're just going to add some solder to the half moons here. We can use Flux, anything to make it easier for us. You can always just use alcohol after and clean it up. Okay, now I'm going to move the PCB over here and adjust the camera so it's not blurry. Okay, that's pretty good. So what you want to do is you want to get each one of these more or less in the center so you have an even amount of solder you got to push. So I'm going to try to tack this one here that looks the closest. It's pretty solid, it ain't moving. I'm pushing on it. So we're going to do the same thing for the other side over here. We're going to tack one of the sides. That's on there good. If you want to add some flux, feel free to. This is no clean liquid flux. I'll put a link in the description to the one that I'm using. Okay. So I can't really zoom in any further, but I can bring the board up and hopefully try to get a good focus so you guys can see. Okay, so it's real shiny on each one, and that's what we want. We want to make basically a solder ball from the board, the half moon, to the pad, which we put extra solder on, fresh solder, so it just flows. So right here, it's got a nice solid connection. I can feel it. Same thing here. So on the next revision of this, I'm going to make it a little tighter, so it's a little easier to just dab it with your soldering iron tip. But this right here is not hard at all anyways. So as you can see, the size of this compared to the size, of this tiny thing, it's a real pain in the ass. So this is the reason I made this. So it's a nice, clean, elegant installation, and these are much easier to solder to. Flex PCB than this tiny little thing here. In the guide, they solder one on the side and then another one either on top or to the side of that. Real pain in the ass. This method is just much simpler. Okay, so this one's all set. I'm gonna get the other PCB. The other PCB is 0.8 millimeter thick, not the standard 1.6 that OSHPark offers. They do have a 0.8 millimeter option as well. So if you're gonna go with a PCB version, you want to go with that thickness. If you're gonna bring this to some other PCB maker, you want to get the 0.6 millimeter thickness boards. They're a little thinner, they're closer to this thickness as opposed to the other one. It just brings it down a little bit more, a little easier to work. I'm going to just give it a quick cleanup. Get some of that residue out of there. 99% alcohol right there. Nice and clean. Okay, next PCB. The other thing that I don't like about the PCBs from OSHPark is they have these tabs. You can kind of see them here and in the middle, and there's another one up here. I trimmed them so they're kind of gone, but if you don't, you know, they'll stick up. So we're going to do the exact same thing on this motherboard. We're going to add a solder to each side of each pad. Use Flux, helps. Plus we're going to clean it up, so not a big deal. I'm not using Flux this time. There really isn't that much of a need for it on this board. But if you feel comfortable and that's what you think you need to use, feel free to put it on there. Okay. Same setup. Looks like I put a little too much solder. You can see I closed off a little bit of some of the half moons. I'm just going to clean that up real quick. Alright, let's give that a second try. Okay, much better. It's more flush. So the same thing here, we're going to line it up, as you can see. And I'm going to tap on this one. Might have to add some flux and introduce some more solder. Just because the PCB is thicker. Okay, so this one's a little bit more work. You have to actually get it in the half moon to make it flow. You have to add some extra flux in there because it has to go down. This is a little much thicker than the flex. So if you have the option, go with the flex. Flex PCB. Okay, that one's good. No, you don't want that. And just bridge it across. Let's add some more flux. Well, this is turning into quite a bit of work. So I don't recommend the PCB version. I'm going to try to suck some of this up. Okay. PCB version, not ideal. I might have to turn it this way so I have a better angle on the other side. This does require a little bit of heat because I have ground all through this PCB, so that's what I'm running low on battery, so I should be able to finish this video before my battery dies. So I was able to get that and this side. It's a little bit of work. So we're going to do the same thing here. Get that tip on that side. A thin tip is very useful here. I'm trying to melt the solder that's here in the half moon, and also the solder that we added to the capacitors so they flow together. Don't be afraid to add flux. Definitely helps, especially with the PCB version. I'm just letting it heat up, getting it to flow, and I'm touching the capacitor there so that the solder on the capacitor with the 1.5 moon will flow together. I could tell, it's hard to see in the camera, but I could see the solder has like a concave from the the half circle into the pad. So that right there is the PCB version. Personally, get the Flex PCB. Much thinner, much easier. So these will eventually be available on my site. I'm thinking maybe $3–4. These things are not that complicated, they're not that expensive. You can build your own because I am going to open source this. So you can go to OSHPark. I'll eventually have the link probably today, which will be in this video in my description, and you can order yourself your own PCBs. Get the Flex version though. Thank you.